Are you currently living in New York and you're looking for a more affordable place to call home? If so, this video is for you. We're comparing New York to Pennsylvania. I've helped numerous amount of clients move from New York to find their perfect home here in PA. So we're going over some of these similarities, but for the most part, the major differences between New York and PA. And of course, we'll dive into the all-important topic of cost of living as well. So let's get started. Starting with the housing differences, both Pennsylvania and New York have very diverse types of housing, with everything from apartments to estate-style homes on tons of acres, and just about everything else in between, such as the standard townhome and single-family homes as well. Besides the different pricing amongst these states, which we'll talk about later in the video, the major difference is that New York is, of course, home to New York City, which has some of the most expensive and luxury real estate in the entire world. New York City was named the global billionaire capital of the world, so of course, as you can imagine, there are some pretty pricey homes there in New York. Back in 2022, New York City was home to the most expensive house ever listed on the market at $195 million for a single penthouse. New York City is also known for their micro apartments, and that's because of the cost of living in New York City. I've seen more and more news articles about these apartments that are anywhere from 55 to 100 total square feet. So in conclusion, the major differences between New York and Pennsylvania real estate is that Pennsylvania, of course, doesn't have the ultra luxury high-priced housing, and we also, of course, don't have the micro apartments like New York does because we don't have the affordability issue that New York City has. Next, the weather in these states are just about the same, except there are a couple of differences. Both New York and PA experience all 4 seasons throughout the year, including the hot and humid summers, the brisk fall season, the freezing cold winters, and the very warm spring. New York has slightly colder temperatures than Pennsylvania, especially in upstate New York and areas farther north around Buffalo, New York, which borders Canada. If you don't plan on living in either northern New York or northern Pennsylvania, truthfully, the winters are really not that bad. They are quite cold and we do get some snow, but before the current winter that we're in right now, we didn't have snow for the last 2 to 3 years. This winter here, we've had a couple of storms, right around 6 to 8 inches of snow, but overall, we've had a pretty easy winter. Technically speaking, both states can experience tornadoes and hurricanes, but I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, and there's really only been one time that I can think of that a tornado has actually caused some damage in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania where I'm located. If you're looking to make the move to Pennsylvania, I would love to help you. My email is right here, or all of my information is down in the description below. Now let's talk about the cost of living and taxes between New York and Pennsylvania. According to bestplaces.net, if the entire US cost of living has a baseline of 100, Pennsylvania as a whole has a cost of living rating of 94.6, 5.4% lower than the national average. Let's take a look at some of the cost of living categories that this website has broken down for us. The grocery score is 100.3, 101 for health, ever so slightly over the national average for those two. The biggest difference is the housing score of 80.5, which is significantly under the national average, and we'll look deeper into the real estate cost later in the video. The utility cost is also under the national average at 98.2. The transportation isn't surprising that it's above the national average at 104, because unless you live in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, or the surrounding areas around those cities, it's very unlikely that you'll have access to public transportation just about anywhere else throughout Pennsylvania. Miscellaneous is a 101.5, so just slightly over the national average as well. So now this is where it gets interesting, because let's take a look at those same categories broken down for the cost of living, but now for New York. Starting with the overall cost of living for New York, which is 121.5 and 21.5% higher than the national average. Now looking at the categories below, there isn't a single category in New York that is below the national average. The grocery score is 103.8, the health category is 120.7, the housing is 47.4 points higher than in Pennsylvania at a score of 127.9. The utilities are 115.9, and shockingly enough, even with New York City being in New York, the transportation is 140.7, and the miscellaneous is 121.8. So as we can tell, New York is much less affordable than both the national average and Pennsylvania. Now for one of the most interesting comparisons, the taxes. Starting with sales tax, Pennsylvania as a whole has a sales tax of 6% all throughout the state, except for Allegheny County, which has 7% total, and Philadelphia has 8% total. New York has a state sales tax of 4% as a whole, but depending on both the combined state and local tax, specifically in New York City, it could be as high as 8.875%. Pennsylvania's average property tax rate is 1.58% of the assessed value, but that can drastically change depending on the local area within the state that you plan on moving to. In New York, the property tax rate also depends very heavily on specifically where in the state that you live, but as an overall state average, the property tax is 1.68% of the assessed value. The sales and property taxes are not too significantly different between PA and New York, but the drastic difference comes when we start to talk about the income tax. Pennsylvania is a flat rate income tax, meaning no matter how much you make, everyone is taxed at the same 3.07% tax rate, unlike most other states where there's a variable tax rate depending on how much you make, such as New York. New York has 9 different income tax rates ranging from 4% to just under 11%. Just for a couple of examples, if you're making between $27,000 and $161,000 a year and you're living in New York, you would be paying 5.5%. If you're making between $323,000 and $2.1 million a year, your tax rate would be 6.85%. Look at it this way. If you're living in Pennsylvania and let's say you're making hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year, you would still be paying less state income tax than the lowest tax rate in New York. The job markets between these states do also have some pretty close similarities, but also some drastic differences as well. For example, New York, of course, has New York City, and Pennsylvania has Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. So those 3 cities have just about every job market industry that you could ever really need. New York has strong job market sectors in finance, healthcare, technology, tourism, media, and education. And comparing those to Pennsylvania, which also has a diverse economy with a significant industries including manufacturing, healthcare, education, energy, technology, and agriculture. Of the top 100 American companies, a good amount of them are based in either New York or Pennsylvania, such as JP Morgan, Verizon, Pepsi, Goldman Sachs, etc., which are all in New York. And in Pennsylvania, we have AmerisourceBergen, Comcast, Hershey Company, etc. Comparing education now, according to bestplaces.net, New York is the second to last rated for public school district ratings in the country, and Pennsylvania looks to be pretty highly rated. Besides just rating public school, both New York and Pennsylvania have some of the most desired and prestigious colleges and universities in the country. New York is of course home to the very popular and desired NYU, Columbia University, which is an Ivy League school, Syracuse, and Cornell, just to name a few. Pennsylvania's Ivy League school is the University of Penn, and we're also home to Penn State, Carnegie Mellon, Villanova, and the Wharton School of Business, also just to name a few. Lastly, and arguably the most important category that we're going to talk about, and that's the housing prices between these 2 states. New York is known to have some of the highest price housing in the world, so let's see how it compares to Pennsylvania. New York has an average home sale price throughout the state of $727,695, with values declining 3.8% over the last year. It's no secret that New York City specifically is popular amongst people from out of the country, celebrities, and the top business executives to live, which means homes in New York City specifically are very, very pricey. From all of the clients that I have helped move from New York to buy a home here in Pennsylvania, they are always so shocked to see how much bang for your buck you can get here in PA compared to New York and specifically New York City. Personally, from my point of view as someone who's never lived in New York, so kind of from the outside looking in, it kind of seems like you can't really get too great of a home both in New York and New York City for under $1 million, which is crazy because in Pennsylvania, our average price point throughout the entire state is $253,762, roughly $470,000 cheaper compared to the average price of a home in New York. Of course, depending on where in Pennsylvania you end up moving to greatly determines the average price point in that specific area. So for example, in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania around the Philadelphia metro area. The average price point for a home is right around $350,000 to $400,000. Of course, depending on where in the state you're looking to buy, the average price point can drastically differ. So is Pennsylvania for you? If so, I would love to help you find your perfect home here. All of my contact information is below, and I'll see you over on this video where we specifically compare New York City to Philadelphia.